Hey, so today's video is something a little bit different. I know many of you are curious about life in Toronto, Canada, where I'm from, and life in Dubai, where I live now. So today we are going to be talking about and comparing life in Toronto versus life in Dubai. We're going to talk about weather, language, work, social life, culture, and cost and quality of living. There's also going to be a lot of useful vocabulary in today's video, which I will pop up on the screen for you. Let's go. First, a little bit of background. For those of you who don't know, I have been an English trainer since 2010, and I've worked in quite a few different countries. I've worked in China, Brazil, Afghanistan, England, Thailand, Canada, my home, and now the UAE, where I decided to stay, all right? So I have moved around quite a lot, and I do have experience moving abroad and living in different cultures and different countries. So I will try to be as objective and as fair as I can in today's comparison. All right, now let's start off with one of the most obvious differences between Toronto and Dubai, which is the weather. Toronto gets very cold and Dubai gets very hot. Now, Canada does have 4 seasons. Unfortunately, the winter is by far the longest. So we do have winter, spring, summer, and fall, but winter takes up 5, almost 6 months sometimes out of the year. Now, when I was growing up, the cold weather and the winter didn't bother me as much. It was, of course, fun to play in the snow and all that. But as you get older, it's not nearly as fun. You wake up in the morning, it's cold and it's dark. You go to work, you get home, it's still cold and dark. You have to clean ice and snow off your car every day. It's quite a hassle. You have to bundle up and wear tons of layers of clothes, and it really does negatively impact your mood, which I actually didn't realize until I moved away from Canada. I didn't realize the impact that the cold and dark was actually having on me. And this is a very common thing for many people. Now, Dubai, on the other hand, does not have 4 seasons. It's a desert, so it is hot. Now, majority of the year, the weather is actually beautiful. You can spend a lot of time outside, you can go to the beach, you can go camping in the desert. There's lots of things to do. But for about 4 months out of the year, during the summer months, it is extremely hot from around May to August or even into September. And during the summer months, a lot of people travel, so the city is quite quiet. Now, even though it's extremely hot and you can't really spend time outdoors, there is still a lot to do and everything is air conditioned. Although it's not ideal that you can't really spend time outdoors for a few months, it's much easier to be in Dubai in the summer than it is to be in Toronto in the winter. And one more thing to keep in mind is that since Dubai is a desert, obviously there's going to be much less greenery here than there is in Toronto, but this is not really an issue for me personally because I live in a residential area where there are parks and trees and lots of grass around, so it's still okay. I'm also a city person, so this doesn't really bother me. But if you're someone who absolutely loves to have greenery around you, Dubai might not be ideal for you. All right, now let's talk about language. So in Canada, the official languages are English and French, but English is much more widely used and spoken. If you live in a province like Quebec, that is a French-speaking province, in which case you do need to speak French. A lot of Canadians like myself studied French in school, and some Canadians have a working knowledge of French or basic knowledge of French. Not everyone is bilingual. So if you are moving to Toronto, where I'm from, the main language there is English. So in order to live, to work, or to study there, you do have to speak English. And if you wanted to move there, you would have to pass an English exam like the IELTS exam. Now, here in Dubai, the official language is Arabic. However, English is much more widely spoken and used, and that is because the local Emirati population is actually very small. A majority of the people here, like myself, are foreigners or expats that live and work here. So the common language used at work and in education is English. Now, that doesn't mean that everyone speaks English perfectly or fluently. A lot of people have quite a low level of English because you have people coming from all over the world. There are so many different nationalities here. It's incredible. But that also means there are sometimes a lot of miscommunications when it comes to language because a lot of people do not have a very high level of English. So for example, it's not uncommon here to take a taxi and the taxi driver does not speak English at all, or to have a maintenance man or a repairman come to your apartment or to your house to fix something and they do not speak English at all either. Now, with this being said, even though not everyone has a high level or a perfect level of English, your communication skills are extremely important here because there are a lot of misunderstandings, a lot of miscommunications. Sometimes there's a language barrier. So it is important to make sure that you have strong, clear communication skills. Even though you are communicating in English with other people, there's a lot that's lost in translation sometimes. So if you are thinking of moving to Dubai, you do need to speak English. Of course, it's a benefit or it's nice if you speak Arabic as well, but in reality, it's not actually necessary at all to speak Arabic. All right, now let's talk about work. Like anywhere, there are pros and cons of working in Toronto and pros and cons of working in Dubai, of course. Now, there are three main reasons why people generally choose to move to Dubai to work. First of all, there's more potential. There's much more opportunity because the city is growing. It's also easier to open your own company or start your own business here than it is in Toronto. Secondly, the salaries are higher. And third, there is no income tax. Dubai is still a tax-free city, and that makes a huge difference. In a lot of places, like in Toronto, you automatically lose 20 to 30% of your income, and that really decreases your saving and spending power. Another great thing about working in Dubai is that you have a lot of like-minded people here who tend to be driven and focused and motivated. Everyone here made a conscious decision to take a step to move away from their home, to move away from their country, from their family, to build a better life for themselves, including myself. So the cool thing is that here in Dubai, I get to meet a lot of like-minded people, whereas in Canada, that wasn't really the case. Like I said, there's a lot more opportunity. For instance, here in Dubai, I am self-employed. I'm able to work completely on my own, which is incredible and something that I never thought was possible when I was living and working in Canada. It just didn't even cross my mind. There were so many obstacles and challenges in order for me to work for myself that I just thought that it would never be possible. But here I am in Dubai able to do it. Working as an English trainer in Toronto and in Dubai are very different. Everyone here needs to speak English. While English is obviously the first language in Canada, so of course there's much more of a need for what I do here in Dubai. Now, of course, there are also some cons to working here in Dubai. Because you don't pay taxes, this means that you don't receive assistance or help if you lose your job. You also don't receive a government pension. And although some people might look at this as a negative, it actually does motivate you and push you to make sure that you are prepared in case you were to lose your job. It sounds a little bit strange, but it took me time to kind of wrap my head around this concept. When I left Canada, I thought, oh, well, I don't have this safety net, right? But instead, when the safety net is removed, it forces you to take initiative. It forces you to do better, basically. And that's what has happened here in Dubai with myself and with a lot of other people. So instead, you have to, of course, plan for your own retirement. You have to save and be prepared in case you lose your job, in case you have to move for any reason. But once you move here, you are aware that that is part of the reality here, and it's just a part of life. So it's not really a con to me. In my opinion, a lot of people in Canada rely too much on this. So for example, during the pandemic, the government in Canada was offering assistance to people who lost their job. And as a result, companies were suffering because nobody wanted to work. So this assistance or this safety net actually ended up backfiring. Another con to working here in Dubai is that there is not equal pay for equal work. There are a lot of gaps in salaries. Salaries are also very different depending on nationality and the industry that you're in. So for example, in Canada, if you're a nanny, these are high paid jobs. If you work as an electrician, this is a high paid job. However, here in Dubai, only certain nationalities are hired for certain types of jobs, and unfortunately, they are paid much less. Now, this is a sad reality that's not unique only to Dubai. I've seen it in quite a few places that I have visited and lived in, but it is a reality here as well. And one more con is that since a majority of people do come to Dubai for work, that's the main reason for moving here, sometimes there's a lack of a work-life balance because people are so focused on work. So in Canada, if your working hours are 9 to 5, you leave the office at 5. Whereas here in Dubai, if your working hours are 9 to 5 and you're not done, you're gonna stay at work and finish your work. So it's a little bit different, and I think there's a little bit less importance placed on a work-life balance. Whereas in Canadian culture, a work-life balance is very important and it's also respected a lot more. Now, when it comes to working in Toronto, unfortunately, the situation right now, at the time that I'm making this video, is not great. The unemployment rate is very high and it is very difficult to find a job. The average salary in Toronto is unfortunately not livable at this time due to very high rent and inflation. There is a minimum wage in Toronto. However, even working 2 full-time jobs at minimum wage is not enough to live in the city of Toronto. I'm not talking about the whole country, okay? I'm talking about specifically in Toronto. It has become extremely expensive and not really livable. And in terms of work, very competitive and difficult to find a secure, high-paying job. Another con of working in Toronto is that if you move there from overseas, unfortunately, qualifications and education are not always recognized. And a lot of very, very qualified professionals who move to Canada end up having to do their qualifications or certifications again because Canadian qualifications are recognized in Canada, which is something that I have never understood and I really don't agree with, unfortunately. This is not the case in Dubai. Now, the benefits of working in Toronto, like I said, are the respect for work-life balance, and the labor laws and rules are respected. A lot of jobs are unionized, so there is a little bit more job security in general. However, I personally would still say that Dubai is a much better place for work. There's so much more potential professionally and financially. All right, let's talk about social life. So socializing, friendships, and dating as well. So in Canada, the friends I had and the people I knew were school friends or people I knew from my area or from work. It's people that I grew up with who were part of my everyday life, which is common in most places, I would say. It's not uncommon in Toronto, especially the area where I grew up in, for people to kind of stay around that area or stay in the city. And therefore, they remain friends with a lot of their childhood friends or even friends from college, university, or work. And of course, it's also a lot easier to make friends when you're younger than it is to make friends as an adult. Now, of course, the reality is a little bit different here in Dubai because a lot of people, a majority of people, move here as adults. In Dubai, you do have the potential to make friends and meet people from all over the world, which is amazing and something that also helped me to feel at home here because Toronto is also very, very, very multicultural and international. However, you do really have to make an effort because the mentality of people is a little bit different here. One reason is that Dubai is a temporary place for a lot of people and they don't put down the same roots as they would in their home country. So a lot of people come to Dubai with the intention to stay 1, 2, 3 years and leave, and therefore they're not as invested in developing relationships and friendships as they would be in their home country. This is something that I've noticed as well because there's so many different cultures there can be a lot of cultural differences. Although you get to learn about different cultures, sometimes that can also be an obstacle when it comes to developing deeper relationships with people. Sometimes the cultural differences can kind of stop a relationship from getting any deeper, which I've also experienced here. Now, all this being said, my personal social life is much better here in Dubai than it ever was in Toronto for quite a few different reasons. First of all, everyone here has a similar mindset in the sense that we've all moved away from our friends and our family, and we do need to make the effort to go out and socialize. So there are lots of opportunities if you put yourself out there. So for example, my friends and I normally get together and have a Christmas dinner together if we spend Christmas here. Even though this is something traditionally that you do with family in Canada, we've sort of made it our own tradition here in Dubai. There's also a lot of events, a lot of groups, a lot of organizations specifically to help people network, make friends, build connections, meet other people because of the nature of this city. So again, it does take a little effort. You have to put yourself out there. You have to make the effort to make connections, to nurture those connections as well. It's maybe not as easy as it is, staying in your childhood town or city and growing up there with everyone who you've always known, but it is possible. As well, I go out a lot more with friends here, but it is part of the culture here. It's part of the social life here. So it's more accessible and more affordable. As well, travel is a lot more affordable and accessible in Dubai than it was for me in Toronto. Not just because of salary, but also because of the geographic location and the ease of travel here. Now, when it comes to dating and romantic relationships, honestly, Dubai can be challenging. In general, Dubai is a much more luxurious city than Toronto. And as a result, there can be a lot more superficial people, unfortunately. This is a general statement. This is not everyone. Not everyone is superficial. There are some amazing people here, but there are also some superficial people here. As well, as I said, a lot of people treat life in Dubai like it's temporary. So they're not really serious about relationships, and therefore it makes dating difficult if you're looking for a serious relationship. So I was single for quite a while here in Dubai. I did try dating. I met people, but again, it was hard to meet someone serious. However, eventually I did meet my husband here, and now we've been together for almost 6 years and we're married. So it is possible to meet people and to date and to get married here in Dubai as well. But I did find it easier in general dating in Toronto. It was more casual as well. It was common to go out for a coffee, for example. Toronto is much more laid back, much more chill, much more relaxed. Culturally, people are more on the same page. So it was a lot easier to date and to meet people in Toronto than it has been here in Dubai. But eventually I was successful, so it's not impossible. All right, let's move on to culture. There is quite a difference between the culture and the general vibe of both cities, Toronto and Dubai, quite different, I would say. Now, the law in Dubai is influenced by Islamic religion and traditional Arabic culture. However, it is not nearly as strict as people think it is, people who haven't been here. A lot of people have asked me how I have to dress or how I have to act, or is it strict? And honestly, I feel like I have much more freedom here in my life than I did in Toronto. I know that that might sound strange, but I will explain. So it is a common misconception, first of all, that Dubai is so strict. There is nothing that I cannot do here that I could do in Canada. Now, this is me personally. This is not everyone. I know everyone has different lifestyles, but I'm speaking from my personal experience. There is no difference for me. Basically, as long as you act normally and you show respect, you will have no issues. Now, some people also say that Dubai doesn't have much of a culture, that it's very artificial, and I disagree with this personally. you have to remember that Dubai was developed and built up over the past few decades. So they did have to develop their identity very quickly. And I would say that a big part of the cultural identity here is that it is such an innovative and driven place, which is quite a big difference from Toronto. The government here in the UAE takes pride in the place and they take pride in their people. That's very obvious. It's very clear when you're here. They want to be the biggest, they want to be the best, they want to push the limits and push the boundaries. And because of this, they're very innovative and quite adventurous compared to Toronto. And I did mention that there's, some people who make a lot of money here and some people who don't, but everyone here, regardless of their salary, regardless of their nationality, has chosen to come here in order to push themselves to create a better life. So part of the culture here is this drive and this passion and this motivation that you feel when you talk to people here that I did not feel when I lived at home in Toronto. Now, the culture in Toronto in general is much more relaxed, down to earth. The people are friendly. In fact, Canadians are known for being friendly, and generally that is true. Toronto is also a young and trendy kind of cool city. People have a very unique style as well. People from Toronto have a very specific slang. It's quite a unique city. It's also very, very multicultural. It is apparently the most multicultural city in the world, which is something to be proud of. Now, a huge part of the cultural identity in Canada and in Toronto is tolerance, acceptance, diversity, and that was something that I've always been proud of and found to be very beautiful. It's one of the things that I have taken from the Canadian culture. However, in recent years, a lot of people in Toronto have become a lot less friendly, a lot less tolerant. And unfortunately, there has been a lot more clashes recently about political and social issues, which can be a whole other video, which I can't get too much into now because it's a lot of information and it's very long. But people's attitudes and mentalities have changed in recent years. And unfortunately, these clashes because of social and political issues are pushing people apart rather than bringing them together. And I feel like the unity that we once had and the level of respect that we once had in Toronto that made it a great city isn't there anymore. Now, I'm not saying that it's a bad place to be. If you've never been there, you might not notice this. But as someone who was born and raised in Toronto, I'm comparing the city now to what it used to be. So I feel like the direction that the culture is going in is causing people to clash and causing us as a whole to actually lose our cultural identity rather than bringing people together. Now, this is quite a complex issue, and I can talk more about this in another video if you would like. Just let me know. All right, now let's talk about the cost of living and the quality of life. Now, both cities, like most cities anywhere in the world, are expensive. However, in Toronto, the cost of living is higher and the salaries are lower, unfortunately. In Dubai, you have higher salaries and compared to Toronto, an overall lower cost of living. Some things that are more expensive in Toronto than Dubai are property, both renting and buying. Transportation, so this includes gas, public transportation and taxis, eating out or ordering food from restaurants, and groceries. Now, all of these are part of our basic expenses, which make the cost of living higher. Now, a few things that are more expensive in Dubai than in Toronto would be alcohol. Alcohol definitely costs more here than in Toronto, especially if you drink at restaurants or bars. As well, clothes shopping. So if you go shopping at the mall, clothes tend to be more expensive here. I don't love shopping here. And your bills like your electricity and your hydro bills. But with this being said, the overall cost of living in Toronto is significantly higher than here in Dubai. Plus, you have a lower salary and you have to pay taxes, which obviously impacts your quality of life. I know that a lot of people think Dubai is a very luxurious city, and of course it is compared to other cities. You can go to a 5-star hotel or 5-star restaurant, But you can also do a lot of free activities. There are a lot of deals. There are a lot of budget-friendly options. Of course, you just have to get to know the city. When you're a tourist in any city, you don't really know what's going on there. And of course, chances are you're going to spend more money. And the same would go for visiting Toronto. As a tourist, you're definitely going to spend more money. But Dubai is very livable. If I look at the life that I had in Toronto and the life that I have here in Dubai, hands down, Dubai is much, much better. A much better quality of life, and it is much more livable. And all of the aspects that we talked about today have given me personally a much higher quality of life than I ever had when I lived in Toronto. Now, with this being said, I think it's important to remember that everyone comes from a different place. So of course, this comparison is about my personal experience in Toronto and my personal experience in Dubai. It is all relative. It depends where you're coming from and where you're going. So my life in Toronto wasn't great, and therefore my life here in Dubai is much better. It really depends where you live now, what your reality is, and what you're looking for. So of course, for some people, life in Canada will be much better, and that is absolutely a reality and a truth. Now, don't get me wrong, I am by no means saying that Toronto is bad and Dubai is good. Of course, it is objective. It really depends on what you're looking for, where you live now, what your reality is now, what your circumstances now, what is important to you, what your values are, what your goals are. And that's going to determine how you look at Dubai and how you look at Toronto, or really any city for that matter. But for me, even though I was born and raised in Toronto and I have lived in other countries, I feel like Dubai is the best place I've lived so far, and I plan on staying here for the foreseeable future. Now let me know if you have lived in or visited either Toronto or Dubai and what your opinions of the cities are. I would love to know. And if you would like more videos like this, please do let me know by giving this video a like. As well, leave a comment and share your thoughts on today's topic. And don't forget to subscribe. Now, of course, I will be making tons more English lessons, don't worry. But I know that this is a topic that a lot of people are curious about, and I know a lot of English learners would like to move abroad, work abroad, or study abroad. So hopefully you learned something new in today's video as well. Don't forget to grab your free ebook, English Conversations Made Simple. I'll link that down below. Thank you so much for watching, learning, and spending time here with me today. I'll see you very soon in another one.